Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Hey, New Orleans, get ready for some rugby. There's a new pro sports team in town, and it's NOLA Gold, bringing world-class rugby to the Crescent City. The game is fast, the hits are hard, the fan experience is for real. Season tickets, lifetime tickets, and game day passes are all available at nolagoldrugby.com. I'm John Goodman, and I'll see you in the scrum.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and this is our 150th episode since we started this 3 years ago, and for the first time ever, I'm starting my open sitting down, and there's a reason I'm doing this. Hey, first of all, I want to tell you this show, we're all about winners this week. We have the #1 ranked baseball team, LSU, in the country. Head coach Paul Mainieri is going to be here. We also have the hottest team in the country in basketball, LSU. Well, we have their former Final Four coach, who now is one of the radio broadcast voice of the Tigers. His name is John Brady. He's coming up. And also, we're going to have that NOLA Gold rugby team. We have 2 stars, one from South Africa, Tristian Blewett, one from Australia, Tarr. They're both going to join us. But right now, for the second straight week, New Orleanians woke up on a Monday morning with a giant hole in their heart. First of all, last week, we know what happened to the Saints. We saw the teams getting off the Super Bowl planes this week, and we're like, the Saints should be there. But yesterday, if you're a basketball fan, you got hit hard. Anthony Davis, his agent, Rich Paul, came out and said, hey, don't bother trying to re-sign him. Anthony Davis will not sign an extension. He is going to be traded. He wants to be traded. So now everybody in New Orleans is like, oh no. Well, instead of sitting here talking about it myself, I brought a guy that's a head coach. Name is John Brady. We're going to talk to him later about LSU, but right now I'm going to talk about the Pelicans, and as a coach himself, what do you do in this situation? John, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir.
This is the most unique show. This is our 150. But real quick, give us a minute talking about how would you react if you have to coach a guy that's already said he wants to leave?
Well, my first reaction when I read that in the paper of his agent announcing he didn't want to play here anymore, he wanted to be traded, my first thought goes to Alvin Gentry, the head coach. Now, I know the NBA. I don't know anything about the NBA business. But if I'm a head coach and my best player has told me he doesn't want to come back and doesn't want to play on the team anymore and he wants to be traded, I would have a hard time, a difficult time coaching him and believing in him and counting on him to play his best for me throughout the rest of the season. It's just a tough situation for a head coach, in my opinion, to be in with his star player saying he doesn't want to be a part of the franchise, he wants to be traded.
There he is right there. John Brady, I appreciate you. We're going to have John right back. Hey, like I said, this is a unique situation. I wanted to start the show off a little differently. Hey, but we're coming right back. Primetime Sports, stay tuned. It's coming up next. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports, and like I said in the open, this is all going to be about fun today. No more tears about Anthony Davis wanting a trade to leave, and also, of course, the Saints putting that in the rear view. The Super Bowl is coming up this weekend. Hey, listen, no more boycotting. Watch the Super Bowl. Be a fan. It is very sad that we're not there, but you know what's not sad? We have the #1 baseball team in the country. This team is locked and loaded and ready to go. They have a lot of experience, a lot of young talent, and some great coaching led by the man sitting next to me. He's an NCAA national champion. And here he is right here once again on Primetime Sports, Paul Mainieri, head coach for the LSU
Scott.
Tigers.
Hello, Scott. It's good to be with you.
I have to apologize about the footballs first.
No. Hey, listen, when you said no more crying about the Saints, can you please have a conversation with my wife about that, please? Every morning. She's not over it yet.
It's hard, brother.
She's not over it.
It's hard.
I'm not over it either, but I have something to distract me. We got
exactly.
a season to get ready for.
So talk about that. Your season starts literally in about 2.5 weeks. Talk about the opening of the season.
Yeah, it's always an exciting time. This is my 37th year.
Wow.
I was looking at that monitor. When did I get old? I don't remember that time.
I do that every time I like the monitor.
Snuck up on me. 13th year at LSU, and just like every other year, just get excited about the start of a new season and what it might bring. This year is a little bit more unique because of the #1 preseason ranking and 3 of the 5 preseason polls. You know, we're always ranked in the top 5 or top 10, but when you're preseason #1, it just has a little bit more special giddy up in your step there, I guess. So we're all excited. You know, we start off February 15th, we play UL Monroe, and then we play the Service Academies, Army, and Air Force. And just for the record, I invited Navy. They declined the invitation, or we would have had all 3 service academies.
Yeah, I know that's special to you. You coached at Air Force, and obviously before Notre Dame, correct? And I know you love bringing them in.
Well, I do. I have a special part in my heart for the Air Force Academy specifically because of the 6 years I spent there. I'm the only coach in America, Scott, that has as former players 2 different general officers in our armed forces.
Wow.
So I'm proud of that.
You should be.
But I also, like most Americans, are very patriotic, and I don't think we ever say thank you enough to the men and women in our service that put themselves in harm's way and you know, make sacrifices that you and I couldn't fathom. So anytime we have a chance to recognize them, express our appreciation to them, I think we should do it. So that opening weekend, now these boys have not yet served their country, you know, and put themselves in harm's way, but it hopefully will be something to inspire them for the service that they will be providing for us later on.
I've talked to a lot of coaches in a lot of sports, and several of them have been #1 going into a season. Some coaches don't mind that target. Others, they like to kind of roll into it and get up to #1. How does it feel? You know everybody's gunning for LSU regardless, but that #1 target does add something a little special.
Well, #1, it doesn't, pardon the pun, first of all, I should say, you don't have a choice.
Sure.
People are going to rank you wherever they want to rank you. So when people say, would you rather be 1 or would you? We are. We're
hey,
#1.
to promote this show, it's great.
Yeah. So, hey, what are you going to do? But actually this year, Scott, I actually am glad we're #1 preseason. And so a lot of coaches may say, well, it puts too much pressure. It's, you know, too much expectations, whatever. But for me, for a couple of reasons, I thought it was a good idea. #1, last season was kind of a transition year for us, and it didn't quite meet the standards that we have for ourselves at LSU. You know, for a lot of schools, if you make it to, you get a bid and you make it to the finals of a regional, that's considered a great year. But for us, you know, our goal is Omaha or bust, as you know. So we're coming off a year where it was a transition. We dealt with a lot of adversity along the way. I thought our kids hung in there, but at the same time, you know, we didn't make it to Omaha. Secondly, I think that it puts a little more pressure on our team, which is a good thing. And the reason I say that is because once you hit SEC play, I mean, there's no more pressure. I mean, the intensity is so great that you just got to be hardened and ready for it. And I think if we start out the season #1 with that that target on our back, it forces our players to deal with that pressure. And then finally, I think it creates a lot of excitement among our fan base. You know, we had a fan fest on Sunday. We had 2,500 people there for a 4-inning scrimmage, and you know, interaction with the players and the coaches. And so everybody's excited, and so our players, our staff's excited, and we're, you know, it's time to line it up and let's go get it.
There's a shot at Coach Mainieri at Fan Fest. Hey, by the way, there's so many players I want to talk about. I'm sure we're not going to have time to get to all of them, but one of them, well, I love what you said. He's the 6th best athlete in his own family, yet he might break LSU's all-time hits record. And of course, I mean, Antoine Duplantis, whose brother, by the way, is one of the great Pole vaulters in the entire world. His dad and mom were both great athletes.
Yep, there he is.
There he is, Antoine Duplantis.
No, that's Mondo Duplantis' older brother.
right. Mondo is the guy who's a freshman at LSU.
Well, think about this, okay, Scott. His father was an alternate on the '84 Olympic team. We ended up not going to the Olympics.
Pole vault?
Yeah, as a pole vaulter. His mother was a heptathlete. His older brother, Andres, was our star pole vaulter that graduated a few years ago. And now his younger brother, Mondo, I think he's jumped the third highest jump in the history of the world.
In the history?
Yeah.
In high school he was,
yeah.
too.
Imagine that. No. Imagine, he just won his first collegiate meet, and I think he broke the school record, in his first meet. So, and then he's got a younger sister that's tremendous as well. So he's like the black sheep of the family. He decided at a younger age that pole vaulting wasn't for him. He'd rather swing the pole than stick it in the ground and jump. And thank God he did for our sake. He's I think 85 hits short of Eddie Furness's school and SEC record. He's had 89, 90, and 89 hits in his first 3 years.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, I read the stats. I'm like 90, 89, 90.
Yeah.
It doesn't get more consistent than that.
So we're feeling that he's got a good chance to break the record this year. He needs 85. But for Antoine, you talk to him about it. He'll acknowledge it and talk about it a little bit. But I can promise you, Antoine is all about winning. And he wants to get back to Omaha and wants to win a national championship, and those records are all secondary for him.
I love baseball. I truly love the sport of baseball. I love college baseball. It's something special at LSU, and I know you've said this a million times, but I go to other SEC schools, and it's great, man. Alabama's got a great atmosphere. I lived in Atlanta for a while. My buddy Jeff Dantzler calls the games at Georgia. I like going to the games. I've seen you there, actually. I've seen you when I lived there. I remember seeing you and saying hello when LSU would visit Athens. But when you go to Baton Rouge, for the fan that doesn't know, like I'm just saying, if you were in, this show was, say, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, describe what it is. Like, I love these shots of Alex Box Stadium. Describe what it's like to be in that stadium.
It's hard to describe, for people that have been there, you don't need to describe it. For people that haven't been there, it's impossible to describe it. It's heaven on earth for me. It's my my purple and gold heaven. We have 9,200 season ticket holders. Every day you roll out of bed and you go to the park to play a game, you feel like you're playing for a championship, even if it's a midweek game against an in-state school. Just the enthusiasm is so great, and it's such an honor to represent the school, Scott. Every time you put that uniform on, literally hundreds of thousands of people care about what the result of that game is going to be. I just went to a breakfast in Baton Rouge. I'm not sure why I was there. It was all these top business people in the city of Baton Rouge, and two different speakers got up there and said, "Go LSU baseball Tigers. We got the #1 team in the country." And I don't even know why I'm there. Right. I have a part in it. And yet even those people were, they saw me there and they had to give a shout out. So it's a great responsibility to be the custodian of the program.
Sure.
What Skip Bertman started many years ago, the great players that have gone through the program, the championships. Listen, Skip, Ron Polk at Mississippi State, they're probably the fathers of SEC baseball, what it is today. They made administrators take the sport serious. They showed that it could be self-sufficient. They showed that if you have a good product, people will come out and watch the game. And I think what's happened is a lot of the other schools in our league have taken the lead that Skip and Ron Polk did, and now we have 14 outstanding teams in the league. It makes it harder to win, but it makes it greater for college baseball.
And that's what people don't understand, man. I mean, to always have the excellence that LSU has in this conference, and I hate to say, because I know there's other good conferences, it's amazing. But I want to ask you about a couple players in particular right now, because you had 3 freshman All-Americans 2 years ago. One of them is Zach Watson. I'll get to him in a second. But 2 of them weren't able to play last season. Josh Smith, obviously the great shortstop / third baseman, and the great pitcher Kevin Walker, who had Eric Walker, who had such a great freshman season. Yeah. Talk about them coming back, those 2 in particular, from this team and not being able to have them last season.
I'll tell you, Scott, I tell people all the time, we had the #1 ranked recruiting class in the country pretty much as a consensus for this coming team. The freshmen on our team this year, plus 3 junior college transfers. But I tell everybody, I feel like we had 3 different recruiting classes. We had, of course, the traditional class that was ranked #1, but then Eric Walker and Josh Smith, who missed virtually the entire season last year, having them back feels like another recruiting class. And then on top of that, Zach Hess, Antoine Duplantis, and Zach Watson all could have signed professionally last year, but decided to come back to LSU for one more go at it. And that feels like another recruiting class.
Yes,
so I feel
does.
like we have 3 classes all in one, which, as you mentioned earlier in the show, gives us a nice blend of veterans along with those new players.
I apologize. I had a Kevin Walker I grew up with, so every time I hear Walker, I think of Kevin. So Eric Walker, obviously superstar. Hey, by the way, you mentioned the guys that could have gone pro. We remember this happened a couple years ago, Kramer Robertson and Cole and all the rest of those guys, Cole Freeman.
And Dykeman.
Poche and Dykeman, and they came back. You kind of have a similar feel with these guys coming back. What does that mean for the psyche of the team, that these guys took the love of school, love of wanting to win a championship over the money?
Well, I've never blamed any player
Of
for
course not.
taking the opportunity to go. You know, in baseball, it's the way the profession is, because you don't have leverage after your senior year in negotiating a signing bonus. And unfortunately, the professional organizations take advantage of that. So most really great players sign after their junior year. So it's a unique situation when we have something happen. And everybody wants to talk about those 4 guys 2 years ago doing it. And I'd like to talk about it as well. We became the runners-up in the country that year. We were 2 wins short of a national championship. But people forget that way back in 08, we went to Omaha, and then we had a key guy come back for his senior year in 09 by the name of Lewis Coleman, and he played as a senior. Was a 15th round draft choice in 08 after his junior year, had unfinished business, came back, and we won the national championship. So, you know, we can refer to both the 17 team and the 9 team of having critical players that decided to put off their pro career for a year. Didn't hurt Lewis. He spent about 6 years in the major leagues now, and I'm sure that Kramer and Cole and Dykeman and Poche are all going to have great success in pro ball, even though they delayed their start in pro ball.
I don't want to get this segment over before bringing up what you did last summer or last year, the USA baseball team. You were able to coach there. You have some of your players with you, but the experience overall, why don't you describe that, what that was like?
Oh, Scott, it's almost indescribable. You know, I love LSU, and I love the Air Force Academy and St. Thomas University. I've had an opportunity to work at 3 great places before I came to LSU, University of Notre Dame. But when you put that USA on across,
Special, man.
oh man!
Special.
Every time
I got chills just now thinking about
Hey,
it.
listen, every time I put that thing on, that jersey on, I'd have tears in my eyes. I really did. And it's such a great honor to represent your country. You know, I didn't serve in the military, and I don't feel like I've really done anything outstanding to contribute to our country. All I know is baseball. And this is kind of the one thing that you get to do in your field of expertise to contribute to your country. And it was an awesome experience, and I'm so glad that several of our players, including Trent Forshag, who is our student manager, I got to take him as our bullpen coach.
Oh, how cool is that?
Along with
All right.
Daniel Cabrera, Antoine Duplantis, Zach Watson, and Zach Hess. So it was a great experience for all those LSU kids.
Saw Todd Peterson right there. He kind of became a folk hero with the bat. Obviously, his pitching was great at the end of the season, but what's he provide in that bullpen and at the plate, I guess?
That picture of Todd Peterson with the USA jersey actually was from a few years ago when he was, I think, on the 15 and under team.
Right, yeah.
And one of his teammates that year was one of the boys that played on our team this year who won the Golden Spikes Award for Cal, Andrew Vaughn, and he'll be coming into the box to play us in March. So Andrew will have a nice reunion with Todd Peterson as well as the guys that he played with from LSU this past summer. But this, you know, having Todd Peterson in the program, the guy's so full of enthusiasm, love of life. He's got great ability, and who will ever forget this moment when he crushed this one off the fence? You know, that was probably the most memorable moment of the year last year. And,
it was so much fun.
The other day, Scott, I have to tell you, the other day at our Fan Fest, we played a 4-inning scrimmage. Before that, we had a little batting practice session, like a pregame batting practice session. And there were already about 2,000 people in the stands because the first 1,000 people received an autographed poster. So there was an early line outside the stadium. So when we were taking batting practice, I had Bill Franquez announce a special pinch hitter in the BP session, and Todd Peterson went up and took a few swings.
That's
and
awesome.
The crowd reacted as you might have expected.
I can't believe I'm almost to the end of this interview, and I haven't brought up one of my favorites, and of course, probably most LSU baseball favorites now. Zach Cass is so much fun to watch. He came out of the bullpen, did some great things on that team, and went to the World Series. He was a starter last year. Talk about what he's going to do this season.
Well, Zach's a remarkable young man. He's very intelligent. I mean, everybody knows him as the wild thing, and he's got a lot of emotion to him, but he's a very intelligent young man, and he knows what he needs to do to improve and be a great starting pitcher. He pitched phenomenal for our USA team last summer as a starter. Maybe was the best starter on the team. And I just have this sense that he's ready to take it to another level and lead us to the promised land.
Coach, you've been here before and you signed a ball, but I've got one here. I want this one's got my boy Les Miles and some of the great football players, the Craig Steltzes of the world,
Wow.
Sammy Martins.
Okay.
Coach O is right there.
All right.
Let's get a Paul Mainieri on there.
Okay.
This is our tradition. I forgot to do it with some of the others, and I've had to come back and bring them on. But Paul Mainieri, we can't wait for this season. We give gifts on this show. Coach, I know you and your wife like to go out to eat. This is one of the great, I'd say, bistros in this town. It's called Shays de la Shays.
Sure.
Uptown on Maple Street.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Part of the de la
for
Shays
that.
family,
Yes.
and this is Task Performance. And are you familiar with Task yet?
Tell me about it.
Task is a New Orleans company, and feel how soft this is. Bamboo cotton.
Oh, wow.
And
Very
I'm going to say
nice.
this. I say it before. I used to wear Under Armour, Nike Dry Fit, all the other. I don't wear any of that anymore. Once you put that on,
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you what. And the rugby season.
Oh.
Hey, you got two or
Hey.
three more Saturdays before your season starts.
I saw a couple of those guys out there in the waiting room. I hid behind John Brady because they look kind of tough for me.
They're tough,
I don't know.
man. And those are some of the smaller ones. We got some big boys. But if you can come the next 2
That would be
weeks
cool.
before your season starts, I got VIP
All
for
right.
you
Thank
and
you.
your beautiful
Didn't
wife.
expect all these gifts,
Hey,
Scott. Thank you.
we come bearing gifts.
I'll tell you.
Good to see you, brother.
All right, buddy.
That is Paul Mainieri. Get on out. LSU baseball is starting in 2.5 weeks. I cannot wait. Hey, remember that first weekend you have ULM and then you have the services, Army and then Air Force. Get out and then throughout the season, support your Tigers and support all baseball in South Louisiana. We got some good baseball in a bunch of different conferences. Hey, coming up next, yep, you've seen him before. He used to be my basketball analyst for about 15 straight weeks. Then he got a real job. He's now obviously calling games with Chris Blair at basketball. He's a former Final Four coach. And he's calling a team that might have a shot at it this season. The LSU basketball team has won 8 in a row, 6 straight conference games. They stand at 16-3. His name is John Brady, and he's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
The owners of the De La Chaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez de la Chaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez de la Chaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Embracing New Orleans soul with style in fashion wear from NOLAshirts.com. Show off your love for one of America's unique cities with shirts, belts, and hats in a variety of colors and styles. NOLAshirts.com proudly celebrates the culture and embodies the spirit and determination of people from the Crescent City. The tradition lives on at NOLAshirts.com.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. We go from the team that's number 1 in the entire country, that's LSU baseball and Paul Mainieri, well, to a guy covering the team that's number 1 in the SEC. LSU basketball tied with the Tennessee Volunteers at 6-0. I think you would have won a lot of money if you had bet on this early in the season. They're on a roll right now. It's still a long season. They're only 1/3 of the way through the SEC conference schedule. But John Brady, the team that took them to the Final Four in 2006, the last team that started a conference schedule out at 7-0, and that's what LSU is going to try to do tomorrow night against Texas A&M. He is now one of the voices of the LSU basketball squad, along with Chris Blair. And here he is once again, my former basketball analyst right here in Primetime Sports from 2017. And here he is in 2019, John Brady.
How you doing, my friend?
What's up, buddy?
How you got it?
Kind of missing you on here. You were a regular in Primetime Sports for a while.
You've moved past my pay scale. You got better. You got Paul Mainieri and those kind of people. So I kind of moved down the list.
See, quit being humble, because I know you just took the better job, and I don't blame you. You get to sit next to Chris Blair. You get to call LSU basketball, and everybody loves you again all of a sudden.
I don't know about again.
Right.
That's a bold statement again, but no, it's good to be back and doing that. People have been really kind, and I've had fun with it. And travel with the team. Will Wade's been too kind to me, so I can't thank him enough for what he's done.
But I have to tell you, I mean, let's be fun and let's be frank. Okay. As a coach, it's hard to be respected and loved. But as a broadcaster, it's good to be loved, isn't it?
Well, as long as you say the right things. I hadn't slipped and said anything stupid yet, although stupid comments have been in my past before, but it's been good, though. Chris Blair's a pro to work with, so it's all been fun.
What's your favorite part about doing this side of the business? I mean, because I love listening to you, because you'll just throw out something. Besides the knowledge part, you have that folksy humor. What's your favorite part about this?
Well, I like talking about it and trying to give the listeners what LSU needs to do to win the game, and see if we meet that criteria that I think will lend itself to LSU winning the game, and give them something to follow as the game goes along. And at the end of the game, we talk about it to see if we met these goals, and we didn't. We lose. Sometimes we win, and a lot of times it works in our favor. So I like that sort of thing. And then the best thing about it is when the game is over, I can talk about it, but I'm not responsible for it. And I get to go to dinner, have a glass of wine, eat a nice meal, and go home, go to sleep.
You don't have to think about it anymore, right?
Right?
Hey, I got to ask you, because when I look at this team at LSU now, and I look back to the late 90s, I see some parallels. When you took over in 97, 98 year, the team was in shambles in a lot of ways. You kind of had to start over after Dale Brown's 25 years. At the end, it got a little rough. And this team was taken over. The team was kind of left for dead in a lot of ways, and they fought hard, just like your team did 97, 98. You saw, wow, these teams are well coached, both of them. And then you had that instant success in third year. You went to the Sweet 16. You had Stromae Swift. That team was rolling. All of a sudden, LSU was not just back on the SEC map, but the national map. Well, now LSU's not quite yet on the national map, but they're getting talked about, and they lead the SEC in only Will Wade's second year. Didn't you tell him don't win too fast, too early, because the expectations are going to get high?
Well, I think regardless of what you do at LSU, there's an expectation level there. And unmet expectations is the worst place to be as a coach and a team. But he's met the expectations this year so far, and he's increased the expectations by how they've played. And the biggest challenge for the team now is for Coach Wade to manage what they've created by their success and be able to play every game as they should, because once you go 6-0 and you have a chance to go 7-0 once we play Texas A&M tomorrow, he's created a situation there where LSU fans expect him to win. But that's a good thing. He's recruited well, he coaches well, and the thing that I like about this team is from the first game till right now, you've seen the improvement of individual players, which has led the improvement of the team. And when that's going on, there's good coaching, there's good instruction, there's good teaching going on. And that's what I like to see from a coaching standpoint, the improvement of individuals that lends itself to an improvement of the team.
I got to say this past weekend, I'd be remiss not to bring this up, because LSU has learned to win close games, and that's the hardest thing for a coach to do. I mean, the teams that always seem to be there, the Dukes of the world, they always seem to pull games out you don't think they're going to win. And there's very few games that I've ever been around that seem more likely that a W was going to come out than this past Saturday evening when they played Missouri on the road. And we know, regardless of what a team's ranked in the conference, winning on the road is never easy, and it proved that way on Saturday when Missouri had a 14-point lead with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left in the game, and you were there, I was not. So kind of take us through what happened up there in Columbia and how LSU pulled out that win.
Well, during the course of most of the game, I thought the shots we were taking were quality shots. The coach can't control it going in or not, but certainly he can control who shoots it most of the time and where they shoot it from. And I thought the quality of our shots were quite good. We just weren't making baskets that we normally make. And we kept hanging around, but we kept playing. We kept trying. We kept playing. We kept competing. And then all of a sudden, at about that 2:20 mark, Skylar Mays goes on a 9-0 run for us. We throw a press on them that turned them over. And all of a sudden, we get it to single digits. And when we got it to single digits, I told Chris Blair on the air, I said, Chris, it's single digits now. Hold on, anything can happen. And then LSU ties it up and wins it into overtime. And the thing about the LSU team that I like, when one or two players aren't playing well, we've always seemed to have had 3 or 4 other players or 2 or 3 other players take up the slack, make plays down the stretch, and that's what good teams are all about. And when you start doing things like that, you become a special team and have a special season.
Well, the team went on a 15-1 run to go into overtime, and that's when Javonte Smart, you saw the shots of him shooting, he took over from Skylar Mays. But let me talk about this, the transition, because last year you didn't have those extra players that could pick you up. You know, you had a couple guys, but it was basically Tremont Waters and everybody else. This year, Skylar Mays has tremendously stepped up. He has become the 1B kind of guy. You know, Waters is averaging 14.2, Mays 13.8, and then you have a bevy of young guys all averaging right below that. But talk about the transition and how long it took for the young guys to incorporate with the Waters and the Mays, and even more importantly, possibly, Waters to really kind of bring them along and accept them, because he's actually came off the bench in a couple of games. So ego is something, and that guy checked his at the door.
Well, that's a good point you made. I think when I look back on this season to this point, I think one of the things that changed the play of the team, you know, early on we struggled a little bit to hold a lead. We fouled late in the game. We gave up some leads against Florida State and Houston on the road. And I think when Coach Wade took Tremont Waters out of the starting lineup for 3 games, and then he put him back in, 2 things happened. Tremont Waters started playing for LSU and maybe not the NBA, and I think that was important. And then Coach Wade, when he made that statement, he certainly improved his status with the players. And if you'll bench your best player, not starting for 3 games, since Tremont Waters came back, his stats have been off the charts. LSU has played well. They shared the ball better. They've made big shots. That team has come together on that particular move. And you have to compliment Coach Wade in that decision, but also Tremont Waters and how he responded to being benched and handling it. So it's a 2-way street. It's worked out, and since that time, you know, LSU has really played well.
I touched on Skylar Mays, but my goodness, the improvement. He was a big recruit coming out of U-High a few years ago. Showed some tentativeness, I thought, his first year. Last year, he kind of, you know, you'd see some great games, and you'd see more often than not so great games. This year, he has taken that leadership role upon himself, and you saw against Missouri, that was a great finish, but he's been doing that pretty much all season long.
Well, I think early in his career at LSU, they tried to make him a point guard, and he's not a point guard. He can play with the ball on occasion, but he's really has found his way off the ball as a 2-guard, a swing player. He's much more comfortable than he's been. He has improved, and I think that goes back to coaching. And he also benefits from playing with this guy Waters. I mean, Waters can find open people. He pushes the ball up the floor. He makes other players around him better, and I think Skylar has also benefited from playing with him as well.
Naz Reid, the most heralded of this rookie class, the freshman class coming in. He was a McDonald's All-American. Excuse me. And he, you know, there were some skills that this guy had. I saw in the McDonald's game where he could take the ball up the court. Early in the season when I watched the games, Coach, seemed like he was kind of floating around that 3-point line, and I know he still likes to do it. He is skilled, and he wants to show the NBA he can play. But that's another guy I think that Coach Wade has kind of brought in and said, hey, man, we need you to do this for this team, and it's made not only the team better, but it's made him better as well.
Well, make no mistake, there's coaching going on there. I think, I explain it as Coach Wade's calmed him down a little bit.
Yeah.
He's starting to play from the inside out as opposed to outside in, and a lot of times, when you make a couple of baskets early on in the game around the goal, it gives you confidence to move out. And as opposed to trying to score it from the perimeter now, his focus is scoring around the goal, then moving out and making open shots. And I'll tell you where he's improved also. Defensively, Naz Reid has bought into trying to defend better than he did when he first got there. And that goes back to coaching. You know, most young players think offensively. They say, I went and worked on my game, Coach. Well, what'd you do? I shot the ball 500 times. Well, did you get down in a defensive stance, do any closeout? I didn't do any of that. Well, you didn't really work on your game. So he's got them guys thinking playmaking better defensively now, which is translated into better play for LSU all the way around.
That just seems like how I used to work on my game. Hey, man, I just shot. They go, well, that's the only thing you do well. So why don't you try something else? I'm like, oh, no, it's good. It's more fun that way, Coach.
That's exactly right.
Hey, by the way, the other freshman, before I bring up, Javonte Smart is one of the guys he's from Scotlandville, and he is a point guard. And the combination of him and Tremont Waters, we talked about the unselfishness of Tremont Waters, accepting the role, coming off the bench for a few games, and making himself better. But the other thing, I think it's tough because he had the ball in his hands literally 85-90% of the time last season, and now it's not that he's relinquished the role to Javonte Smart, but he is certainly sharing that role.
Well, absolutely. And Javonte Smart, the thing about him that I really like, and I saw it this summer when I went up and watched LSU practice, he's got a competitive nature that he holds himself accountable to that makes him a special player. He is a competitive guy. He wants to be the best he can possibly be. He loves competing against Waters in practice every day. He relishes in that competition, and it's made him a better player. And although he's not shooting a great percentage from the three-point line, he has made critical big three-point shots during the course of games. And Darius Days and Emmett Williams, all three of those freshmen, Naz Reid's a different deal because of his reputation. Those three guys compete, and Days and Emmett Williams go to the offensive glass as good as any freshman I've ever seen.
Right there, yep.
And the other night when Emmett Williams went to the free throw line, he missed one, made one to tie the game, to send it into overtime.
Yeah, and that ball rolled around a bunch.
Yes, he got fouled going to the offensive glass. They tried to block him out, couldn't get to him, knocked him down. He went to the line because he went to get an offensive rebound, and those qualities in a player are hard to come by.
I love Williams. I got to be honest with you, because he's my kind of guy. That dude, he's infectiously, it's contagious, his enthusiasm. Right. But he look at this right here. What a great picture that one is. But the guy just does everything. I mean, listen, he's undersized for a rebounder, but he gets the boards. He's fired up after that Missouri win. Shot blocker, does it all. And I waited for him last because I wanted to specifically talk about him. What, in your mind, does this guy provide to the team, not just on the court, but also off? Because you're around these guys a good bit.
Well, the whole team, and they showed Marlon Taylor there. He's another player that's really improved.
We'll get to him too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Emmett Williams brings a personality to the team. One thing about our Final Four team in 06, you had personalities on there. Glenn Davis was the guy.
Big baby.
Yeah, big baby.
Mitchell.
Kept us going. Tasman Mitchell, Tyrus Thomas. Those guys had personality. Emmett Williams is like that, and none of these guys, and when I've seen LSU practice and watch them do on the bus or in the locker room or wherever the case may be, none of these players has ever resisted what Coach Wade has wanted them to do, and that's a real positive thing for a team to have.
Well, Marlon Taylor is like this jumping jack. I mean, he has got an NBA type of vertical leap. I mean, we've seen. Look at this in high school. That's normal for him. I mean, he glides, man. I didn't expect him to get as many minutes as he had, but you can't keep this guy off the court.
NBA athlete, and now he's becoming a better basketball player because they're coaching him and bringing him along. He is really a special player and a super, super athlete.
Coach, we're going to get you into rugby, and when there's a game that is not a basketball game, we're going to get you VIP like I promised Paul Mainieri. I feel like I have a better shot at getting you because I'm around you a little bit more. Paul's got to come from Baton Rouge. Hey, the Major League Rugby, we're going to have a couple of their star players coming up next. Tristan Blewett from South Africa, who was one of the stars of this game. I mean, they won this past weekend 36-31, very exciting win. And then Ben Tarr, not to be confused with Ben Czar, that's an inside joke with Ben. Ben Tarr is from Australia, so we have an international team. It's a lot of fun, man. Last weekend they won. There's your schedule.
Thank you, baby.
Put that on the Brady fridge.
I'll do it.
And I know you love coupons. This ain't a coupon. It's called a gift certificate. It's called Shays de la Shays right there on Carrollton. The first time you and I broke bread, I believe, was at Shays de la Shays after maybe a cold pop at Ye Olde College Inn.
I love it.
And Task Performance, I know you've been here enough to have one of these in your repertoire.
Wear it all the time.
Tell me what you think about that. You wear it? You like it?
All the time. Love them.
All right. My man, JB, otherwise known as John Brady. You can call him that. I just call him Final Four coach. That's right, because he's the last coach at LSU, along with Dale Brown years earlier, to take the Tigers to the Final Four. Maybe, hopefully, Will Wade will be the next. All right, coming up next, rugby time. No more crying about the Saints. No more crying about Anthony Davis. We want winners. And that's what we got right here in New Orleans. I already talked to LSU baseball, LSU basketball. Now it's time for NOLA Gold Rugby. Next on Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, like I said in the beginning of the show, enough of the sorrow of the Saints and Anthony Davis leaving. This show's been all about winners. Hey, we had the #1 head coach in America. LSU baseball comes into the season #1. And how about that LSU basketball team surprising everybody with the 6-0 conference start? They're in the top 25, obviously, moving up rapidly and one of the hottest teams in the country. But here, another hottest team in the country in a different sport, a worldwide sport, the #2 sport in the world. We talked about it last week. We've talked about it a lot in the end of 2018. It's the NOLA Gold. And anybody that had a chance to get out to Gold Stadium this past weekend saw an incredibly entertaining game. It was 36-31. They beat the Toronto Arrows in game #1. And don't forget, they have 4 straight home games. They're going to do it again this Saturday against Glendale, the team out of Denver, not the one near Phoenix. And that's going to be at 2 o'clock once again at Gold Stadium. But here we are, 2 of the stars of the first game. We have Tristian Blewett from South Africa and Ben Czar from Australia. What's up, Tristian? How you doing, my friend?
Good, thanks.
Hey, Scott.
Benny, how you been,
Good
baby?
day, mate. Yeah, good.
Thanks for having
Game
us.
1's in the books. I'm going to take you. You're the veteran. You were here last year. Tell me about game 1 and tell me the difference between going into this season as opposed to going into year #1 last year.
Oh, I think we got a really well-rounded side. We got a lot of strength in our forward pack. We brought in a few guys from overseas, Samoan international, Uruguayan international. I mean, our entire starting forward pack are international players. And the back line, we brought in some high caliber players there too. I think probably Tristian knows a little bit more about it than me, but we're pretty well-rounded side. So.
Speaking of well-rounded, the game had 6 different scores. In rugby, they call them tries instead of touchdowns, but the term touchdown, you have to touch the ball down. That is a rugby term, and I hate to say this because in America we're still learning, a lot of us are, about rugby. So when I'm on the broadcast of the game, there's 2 experts that talk about rugby, and I'm the dumb American that chimes in. So what does this mean? But bottom line is you were one of the guys that scored the 6 tries. You had the most exciting one towards the end. You got you combined a little soccer with the rugby. Talk about that game-winning score.
I think it was just spur of the moment. The game was very close the whole game round. And yes, I don't even know how it happened actually. Just sort of popped up. Jumped onto it, came off the boot perfectly, and ended up scoring.
It was unbelievable. By the way, growing up in South Africa, I have a question for you. What other sports did you play, and what did you know about American football?
I played all types of sports. So growing up at South African schools, we have to sort of do everything. So from swimming, tennis, field hockey, cricket, did it all. And then going into high school, I sort of focused on rugby. And I'd always known about American football and then never really paid too much attention to it until I came over to America, first time in America, and sort of been brought into the American football like hype.
Well, you look like a kind of a beach boy. If you lived here, you'd probably be a Californian. I don't know if you've heard that before, but did you live by the beach? Did you grow up surfing?
Yeah, I did. So I'm from Durban, South Africa, and also on the coast. My hobbies every day after training would be go jump in the ocean, have a surf, go spearfishing, fishing. Yeah, and I love the beach. Well,
this is obviously an area, there's not a lot of surfing down here, but there's certainly a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting. Have you gotten into that in New Orleans yet?
Yes, I've gone out into the bayou, went fishing. Haven't had a bite yet.
You're not the only one. That seems to be my problem as well. Hey, you grew up as a young tot in America, then you went to Australia. Talk about that transition when you were young.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a big transition. I actually went from the US to Fiji Island, so that was a little different.
Yep.
But I've spent a lot of my formative years in Fiji and Australia, so I kind of lost the accent. But But Indianapolis, I go for the Colts. Saints are my second team, so I was sad to see them lose. But yeah, it's good to be back here, and certainly New Orleans is my favorite part of the U.S. easily.
Hey, by the way, you actually were bartending after the game, and we have a shot of that. We also have a shot of you with some kids after the game. Look at this. There you go. Where was this at? We'll give him a little plug.
This is our local bar that our friend here, Ben, found. It's called the Dog House.
The Dog House, everybody.
Yeah.
After the game, is that where everybody goes?
It's where the big dogs drink. That's the slogan, at least. Yeah.
And one of the great things about going to the games, besides the action of the sport, listen, anybody that went to that game, because I had some friends show up and they're like, wow, I had no idea. But it's also kind of a family atmosphere. After the game, I love that you guys interact with the fans. You know, it kind of reminds me of baseball in spring training. That's what they do. But here you are. That's actually a friend of mine's child right there. But Tristian, I mean, it's kind of fun. After the games, everybody kind of gets together. They have a beer and they interact with the kids and everybody else as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something that us as players have to respect. Obviously, we take the time out to go train and put in performance. But I think we have to say a special thank you to the fans for coming out there on their off time, on their weekends with their family and friends and little kids. And they're the ones that actually get us over the line to try get a victory out of the game. Yeah,
we got some game video rolling, but while we do that, I want you to explain. You're the one that's been here a year. I know you didn't probably stay the whole year, but now that you've been here for a while, what is your take on the city of New Orleans in general?
Oh, mate, you'd be very hard-pressed to find any Australian that doesn't love this place. I think there's a lot of similarities there between New Orleans and Australian people.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, the food is exceptional. There's any number of, you could live your lifetime many times over and you're not going to have a cleansing ale at each bar in this city, that's for sure. But no, it's fantastic, and people very friendly down here. I mean, the southern hospitality is something that people hear about, but I've been invited into many people's homes.
Hey, as we're watching this, kind of describe what's happening here. I mean, that's obviously Tim Maupin on a score. Yeah. Oh, hey, if we can, let's replay that first. When you see the crowd there, it was a fun time. Beautiful afternoon. Everything was perfect about it. But Tristian, break this down as if you're an announcer on this play right here. What's happening?
So obviously it's a bit of scrappy play. I think we've just come off a try scored by Toronto. And that's the time where we actually need to step up and sort of get points back.
Con Foley, who was a guest on this show, got the try on that one, but the fancy passing in between was unbelievable.
Yeah, so that's a special thing I think we have in our team. I think we don't have any really selfish players that you sort of get in bigger sides. I think it shows off the field as well. Like, we're all a very tight-knit group, all from foreign places and that. So I think we all, on and off the field, come together and help each other.
Talk about this one, what's happening here. Like, what's going on for the American viewer that doesn't exactly know? Because here's the thing. I mean, most of the time I've seen it, I haven't seen the quick passing like this. I mean, it seems like both of those tries we just saw, you had a lot of guys about to get tackled, and then they just tossed it off. Is that common?
It is common, but I think to do it so many times in one game and so crisply, I think that's something we've worked on a lot. Just to know where your fellow player is running next to you, left, right, deep, whatever, short, over the top, or Cam Dolan through that one. I think it's definitely a flair from each player.
There's Kyle Bailey on the run right there, and then it's like right here you got 3 or 4 passes in a row back, and it's like a give and go in basketball. The give and go. He threw it and right back to Con Foley, who, by the way, was an Olympian last year. I mean, 2 years ago, I guess the Olympics brought back rugby after about a century. They brought it back, and he was fortunate enough to be in the first one. But you guys also have several guys that are going to play in this year's World Cup. I know fans here know about the World Cup of soccer, but the Rugby World Cup is just as big around the world, that is, but it's going to be in Japan this year. And you guys have several candidates that are going to be in that, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Some of the guys from Canada, I think Eric Howard, I believe, is going to be one. Yeah. Hey, describe one rule that they have, though, because I think it's called Rule 9. Whereas we're going to be missing a few players this week because I think the home country, they have to go back and play for 2 weeks. Describe what that means, Ben.
So all around the world, each team has their club. So whether you're playing the professional league in France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, there's Japan, there's many leagues. So players will be distributed throughout these teams, but during the Rule 9 international windows, it allows international teams to to pull in their players from the whatever club they're at, and the clubs are required to release them in order to fulfill their national duty. So club, if you're a player, you'll have your national team that you play for,
sure,
and then your provincial club or professional team.
I just asked him about New Orleans being here a year. My question to you obviously, great player. You can play for probably anywhere around the world. Why did you decide to come to America, MLR, and why did you choose New Orleans?
It's a tricky question. Actually, I'm not too sure. Sort of, I was coming to the end of my contract back in South Africa. I was fishing around, looking to go to Europe, because that's pretty much where the big competitions or big players are sort of moving around in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit full at the moment, struggled a bit to get in there, and then got a phone call from Fitz from NOLA Gold, and sort of jumped straight into it. It was something that I'd never really thought I'd do, and yeah, I was taking a risk, new adventure. Yeah.
So far, so good?
So far, loving it, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you about Fitz, because he is the general manager. He's been on this show before. He came on a few months ago. He was on last year. I've known him from his days in football as a Senior Bowl scout. But he assembled a group of guys for Nate Osborne to coach. It's unique because, listen, it's hard to get guys with chemistry. You can't teach chemistry, but how have they been able? You guys seem to be extremely tight. I've been fortunate enough to be around you guys, in the clubhouse, also interviewed you all, and the common theme to this has always been, man, we all hang out, and everybody that's around sports knows, at least in professional sports, the teams that hang out the most are the teams that win the most.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the thing about Fitz, he's a very passionate man. You could be the best player in the world, but if you're not the kind of bloke that you can sit next to him on a long bus trip, you're not going to get a spot here. He's very thorough in checking what kind of character you are, and it's worked out. Like, everyone is gelled, and it's quite reminiscent for me being, when we say, away from a professional team, you go to your club setup,
sure,
where it's all amateurs and everyone loves playing together. So it's very unique. Tristian can add to that, but certainly it's quite a rare thing in professional sport to have a culture like this, I think.
Do you agree with this? I mean,
yeah. No, definitely. And our coach said it well in the week building up to our game on Saturday. He said I could look to him like we're not a bunch of teammates. We more like actual mates. So I think we've actually become a family, all away from home, like I said earlier. And I think it is special that we can walk next door, go visit a mate. We all at the clubhouse, drinking after the game, or having dinner together every day of the week.
Hey, for those on the fence, this is a question I've had. For those on the fence that are, hey man, I've heard about the rugby. I hear it's fun. Try to decide whether I'm going to go. Give them a reason to go. Tell them why it's fun to go, Ben.
Well, it's a tough game. Americans will, I think, if you haven't seen rugby before, you're going to love it. It's non-stop action. There's no, you stop for half time and that's about it. Other than that, you're just hitting each other. And when you make the tackle, the game's not over. The ball's recycled and you have another crack. So it's quite exciting, and you'll find that rugby fans, wherever you go around the world, there's a certain culture around it. It's very welcoming. So, as you mentioned, we'll have a cleansing ale with the fans after the game, but also the opposition teammate. As soon as the game's over, as hard as it is out there, you can get dirty. It's not uncommon for there to be a few punches thrown. But as soon as the game's done, that guy's your mate. So.
Hey, I'm going to say one thing, because they call this man the wild man. I'm talking about Tristian. He's the prankster over here. I don't have time. I wish we could tell some of his great practical jokes maybe during the year. But speaking of, it's an 80-minute game, and you look like when you scored that, it was like in the 77th minute. I don't know exactly what the time was, but you looked as fresh in the end of the game as you did in the beginning. When they call you the wild man, that's affectionate because it means you're all over the place and you're not scared to hit anybody, and we saw that a couple times. And they take up for each other. When he got hit, Kyle Bailey nailed that same guy. So it was fun to watch the camaraderie and the love between y'all, and congratulations on your first win.
Cheers.
And you know what we do here? We give gifts, and I'm sure you've seen this a million times, but every time we have a guest, I put the schedule up. Okay. You can't barely see it because our home games are in gold, but you'll see the first 4 are home games. It's going to be a gold stadium. Check it. Go to NOLAGoldRugby.com. And here's the thing. If you're home, the easiest thing, just call this number, 504-50-RUGBY. 504-50-RUGBY. I'm telling you, you want the VIP experience. It's fabulous. There you go, a clear shot of it. But we also give gifts on this show. I don't know if they ever let you get back over the East Bank because that's where you train. This is a place called Chez de la Chez, one of the best wine places in the entire city of New Orleans, known for wine. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Task Performance. This is our version of Under Armour, etc., but so much better, so much softer. Wait till you feel that.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me what you think when you feel it.
That's great. Another training jersey.
Another training jersey.
Lacking a
Thank
few.
you.
And there it is.
Mate. Yeah.
Okay.
Ben Czar, come check them out. And, of course, Tristian Blewett right here. Got to thank both of you guys so much. Hey, I have to thank John Brady, the former Final Four coach in 2006. LSU is trying to get back there 13 years later. He is now announcing the games. Of course, my man Paul Mainieri, who coaches the #1 team in all of America in college baseball. I want to thank them all, but of course, this doesn't happen without Will Hill, my producer. He's unbelievably fabulous. And of course, CST and WLAE, Jim Dotson, Ron Yeager, all those good folks. Lexi, Naila Jones, we can't do it without her either, the Redhead Tsunami. I want to thank them all. We'll see you again next week right here on Primetime Sports.